dancing in the streets. And
Yeah. Oh shoot.
Anything we do, I have to push out like 10 different ways.
Hopefully you won't be lonesome today over there by yourself.
I know. I need the arm space.
You need the artist?
What?
Yeah, she'll be gone through the rest of the month. Yeah, Gwen should be coming.
Yes.
But we're getting ready to get started here right now.
He doesn't go anywhere.
Have you ever been on a cruise?
I'm going to hate both of you.
What's your opinion of it?
I need an ordinance of no sirens.
Nice experience.
And nobody died?
Nobody died. A couple people.
It doesn't matter. Fry is all I need. He can
Well, that
hear
shouldn't
them,
keep
and
you.
he's got the best
It's
hearing
not
anybody I've ever
dying.
heard. It's crazy. And it's just a dog freaking out. I mean, have I sent you this video?
He cited the Titanic for a reason not to go.
Oh yeah, you need to see.
Well, that's, so don't travel in the wintertime. When the birds are falling. You're good.
I told him global warming's taking care of it. What time?
It's time. It's time.
Sarah. He wants to start. He was like,
You don't normally get here at 3 when we start.
What time?
Here afterwards.
7 o'clock. Okay. All right. Well, one of my problems is I didn't have a schedule.
I'm here.
And when I knew there wasn't a
She's over there.
game, I was scheduled to do something.
Only one not here.
So maybe I'll try to pop by tonight.
Get me.
Okay.
Let me get my color-coded pens out. Hold on.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the work session for the Sierra Vista City Council for January 21st, 2020. We do have a quorum, so
Rachel's here somewhere.
I'm looking for our clerk to do a roll call, but we do have a
We
quorum.
don't
so-
need one for work sessions.
So we'll go on to presentation and discussion. And the first item is the January 23rd City Council meeting. And as I go through, we'll call the meeting order. We have the pastor and the pledge. We have the acceptance of the agenda. Or is there any, as item number 1, is there any additions or corrections that we need to make for that agenda item? Okay. Next is awards and presentations. We'll be giving an award from the Commission on Disabilities Issues for the Vistability Award. We got the City Manager's Report and opening bids. Chuck, do you have anything you want to share with us?
I just want to let the council know that we're beginning the start of the new development fee process. So we'll give you a little update as to where we're at there and a little bit about the process we'll be going through.
Okay. Then we got, on the consent agenda, we have the regular city meeting minutes from January 9th. Is there any additions, corrections to the minutes?
No.
Okay, I don't see any. And then we're going to have a subdividers agreement on the Kenyatta Vista subdivision. Can we get just a little background on that? I think it's pretty straightforward, but Jeff, you want to give us something?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I do have a little map here to kind of give you an indication of what I'm referring to. This simply is the city's acceptance of the subdividers agreement and improvement security. The improvement security is basically a financial agreement to ensure that the public improvements, such as curb gutter, sidewalk, sewer lines, are completed and constructed in conjunction with the subdivision. Once the improvements are completed, we will return the monetary security back to the developer. Typically, the subdividers agreement is approved in conjunction with the plat, but because of the court case regarding water adequacy, the developer asked the city if they could hold off on the subdividers agreement until such time as they could be ready to proceed with the subdivision, and now is that time. So now we're accepting the subdividers agreement and the improvement security.
So you're recommending this acceptance?
Recommending acceptance, correct.
Okay. And this is a standard practice. Normally, this kind of thing wouldn't come before us because it would be part of the process,
Part of the plat
plat
approval.
process.
Right.
We would be accepting this, essentially it's insurance policy to make sure that the improvements, required improvements are done. Any questions?
I have a question on this. So, this subdivision has been stalled for like 10 years or so. I mean, how long has it been stalled? It's been stalled for a long time.
About 8, I think.
Yeah, it was approved in 2014.
Okay. And this was how it was approved, or?
That is correct. This is the preliminary plat, but the final plat was approved, and there are 4 phases as part of that final plat process.
Okay.
So, but you might see some construction out there now that simply is grading the site. They haven't actually started any of the public improvements as of yet, so.
Okay. Okay, this might be separate, but this is something that I have kind of brought up with Chuck before. Is there any plans to change the traffic pattern on the 2 roads that enclose this subdivision, Coronado and Lenzner, specifically Lenzner?
Right. Yes, there is a proposal to widen Lenzner Avenue. Though I believe there will be at least 2 lane. The Lenzner is actually an easement from the state of Arizona, and then when Workman purchased the property, they purchased half of that right of way. So half of the right of way actually will be expanded to 2 lanes per this subdivision plat. And Chuck.
Jeff, just a quick question, because Sarah did ask me about this. The improvements on Lenzner, though, probably wouldn't take place until phases 3 and 4.
Mr. Pachuchik, that is correct. So phase 1, as you can see here, is 29 lots, and will include the improvements along Coronado, which will include a multi-use path. Also a multi-use path along the wash. You can see that kind of that white area in between the phases. That actually will be constructed as part of phase 1. And all the other streets and roadways as part of phase 1 will be part of that first phase. And so the improvement is only for phase 1. There'll be a separate improvement that's submitted for phase 2 and subsequent for phase 3 and phase 4. The Lenzner improvements will take place during phase 3 and phase 4.
Okay.
So not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Well, that was something, because it's already Harry Carey
Yep.
on that road. It's everybody here probably knows, especially in the morning. As someone who drives every single day on that road, because that's where my kids go to school. But
Well, that's correct, and
yeah.
actually there was a development agreement with this developer. One of the requirements in the development agreement is the developer is supposed to add additional parking to Joyce Clark Middle School to
Really?
alleviate some of that congestion you see along that roadway in Lenzner right now. People are parking along the side of the road. Of course, that's going to go away
those lots
once
with
that's
the-
developed. Yeah,
They're all up in the dirt and all morning.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, so we'll see that more from it as it goes through the phases,
Yes.
kind of a thing?
Correct.
Okay. I just wasn't
Yeah,
sure the
and
process.
one of my concerns has been on Leinster particularly, once this is completed, the far north end still will be state trust land, so it's going to narrow there again.
That's correct.
But again, most of the traffic, and I can tell you from having lived on Gulf Links, most of the traffic goes right to the elementary school, and that's where the big bugaboo and the parking and all the other issues are. So it has been a concern in the past and still a concern until we get it fixed.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you jumping in there, bud.
No problem.
So now we'll move on to item number 3. It's the public hearing items. Mrs. Adams, may we have the staff report, please?
Mayor Mueller, members of council, the item before you is a liquor license, which I apologize, I did not have that up. For the Christopher and Christine Ginter. They've purchased the bar on Highway 90, east of Highway 92, that is PC's Lounge. They are going to continue the name as being PC's Lounge, taking it over. The notice of the public hearing was posted on the facility for the required 20 days, and no comments have been received. This is an interim and a new ownership situation. They are actually operating the bar right now under an interim license. The police department has done their background check and do not oppose this matter going forward, and if approved Thursday night, it will be returned to the state for final action.
Questions for Mrs. Adams? Okay, thank you, Mrs. Adams. Seeing none, we'll go on to item number 4. Mr. Prickler.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. The city did receive a request to change the name of a section or a portion of Shabundy Street, as shown here on the map. You can see it's highlighted. It's adjacent to North Garden Avenue. It would be along the western boundary of this portion of Shabundy Street. Sierra Vista Realty is to the north, the Westwood Apartments to the south. And you'll also notice that this section of Shabundy is actually disconnected from the rest of Shabundy, which is east of Regency and Suites. The applicant, Beth Hughes, who's from Sierra Vista Realty, has indicated that there's a lot of driver confusion, thinking that Shabundy actually connects all the way through, and that's actually not the case. So renaming the street will certainly eliminate some of that driver confusion. There are no businesses that address on this particular portion of the roadway, so it will not require any address changes as a result of the street name. The city did contact Public Works Department, the Police Department, Fire Department, and the rural and the addressing department, and none of those departments have any issues or concerns about the street name change. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended unanimous approval at the December 17th meeting, and then per the city's street naming policy, renaming policy, we are required to notify all adjoining property owners. We did send a notice to the Westwood Apartments, and we have heard no comments from them regarding the street name change. So that does conclude staff's report.
I got one question for you, Jeff. How much does it cost to change a street sign? Is there one or two on that street?
I believe there's just the one at the intersection of North Garden.
Any idea what the cost is?
Mr. Mayor, just off the top of my head, I would say probably not more than $100 a sign. That would be on the high end, including labor.
Okay, all right. Yes, ma'am.
How is the name chosen for the street?
Mr. Watkins is actually the owner of Sierra Vista Realty, and he's been a member of the community for a number of years. Actually, he's the applicant's father was Bob Watkins. Yeah. There's a whole history about Mr. Watkins in your packets. You want to take a look at that to give you some more information about who he was. Okay.
I think.
Thank you.
Did he start the chamber, the local? I think I heard that or read that. No, nobody knows. No.
He was one of the founding members. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
okay. I remember I went to that meeting, the planning and zoning, and he did have a lot to do with starting various things.
So in general, a person would just put forward a recommendation for a name, and if there's no real objections, then that's how it works.
Well, yeah, in this situation, it's pretty straightforward. If there's a situation where there's several addresses addressed off of a roadway, it can get a little more complicated. But in this case, that's not the case, so it's pretty straightforward.
Thank you.
I had a question. So again, I had the same kind of wondering the process on when we decide to name something after a person. I don't have an objection to it, but I'm just curious on the process of, can anyone just suggest anybody for renaming, something?
Well, there's a specific policy for street name changes and street renamings. They require 2 public hearings for the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. Those are the only guidelines that are required in terms of street name changes. There might be a separate policy regarding buildings and such for city buildings.
Yeah, and Mayor Mueller, Councilwoman Pacheco, there is a separate policy for the naming of parks, fields,
Yeah.
facilities. So, and that's council approved as well, and that's what Laura uses for those.
And the other consideration here is how many people actually have a postal address on this, and I would assume the Sierra Vista Realty is probably the only one.
They don't even.
Oh, they don't have one.
They do not, no. It's off of North Garden.
The bottom line is if you had a street that you wanted to change and you had 4 or 5 addressees on there, that's infinitely more difficult to
Right.
do.
Yeah.
I'd imagine so.
And of course, ultimately, it's your decision as to whether or not you want to do that.
I mean, it didn't make a difference to me.
Any other questions or discussion? Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Item number 5, again, that's you, Jeff. I guess you might as well just stay up there for a while.
I'm up here, that's right. I'm not going anywhere. Thank you. This is a request for proposed code amendments to section 151-22006, matrix of use permissions by zoning district. This relates specifically to charter schools and to schools of general education. Now, the development code currently allows public schools and charter schools in all zoning districts. There's actually a state law that states that charter schools are exempt from local zoning regulations to include locational requirements. Now, the development code allows private schools of general education, and what I mean by that, this would be the typical multi-subject graded schools, K through 8, or whatever the case may be. A good example of this would be the First Baptist Church, the Veritas School. These would be considered private schools of general education. Now, the development code only allows these as conditional use permits within the urban ranch and the commercial zoning districts. So that you see there's a difference there between charter schools and these private schools in terms of locational standards. Oops, get down here. So what the staff is proposing is to amendment to allow schools of general education to be allowed by right in all zoning districts, which would meet the same standard as you see for charter schools as you see for public schools. There would be one exemption, would be that it would prohibit charter schools and schools of general education if they're located on property that is zoned single-family residential and is less than 1 acre. And this is actually in a state law. The state says that although charter schools are exempt from zoning regulations, you can prohibit them if they're on single-family residential property, which is less than 1 acre. So we're going to go ahead and the staff is recommending that we implement that prohibition in our development code and apply that to the schools of general education as well. Now, how did this come about? Well, the city was recently asked or requested from a local church here in town to expand their school of general education. And at that point, we looked at our development code to see what the standards would be. We actually looked at the state law to see if we were in compliance with the state law with what it was currently required in our development code. And we realized that we were actually out of compliance. We looked at ARS 41-1493, which is the free exercise of religion, which states that government shall not impose or implement a land use regulation in any manner that treats a religious assembly or institution on less than equal terms with a non-religious assembly or institution, regardless of compelling government interest. So even if we think there might be a potential issue with parking or landscaping or whatever the case may be, that is not enough to prohibit these schools of general education, or especially related to a church, prohibit them to locate in every zoning district. So because of that, we are proposing that we recommend these changes to the development code to be more compliant with ARS 41-1493. And I will conclude staff's report with that.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions?
I had a question on that. Okay, so you kind of addressed why this has came up. You said because of a church, they wanted to expand their school and our zone didn't allow it. I'm just trying to follow along.
That's correct. Currently, so this particular church is actually zoned in a residential zoning district, which actually prohibits outright schools of general education. They couldn't even go through a conditional use permit under the current codes and regulations. Okay.
Also, they can be allowed anyway. I mean.
So what this will do is it will allow them by right to place this church in a residential zoning district as long as it's more than 1 acre.
Okay.
School or church?
School, I'm sorry.
Well,
School.
that brought up my thought that, well, I guess it would apply to schools too, but that if there is a school or a church somewhere near a business that sells alcohol or something, that now the business can't sell alcohol, or so then if you allowed a church to come in, if does this allow a church to come in anywhere? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, the church can go in anywhere. To answer your question about the liquor store or the restaurant that sells the alcohol, if they are, they would be vested, if they're already, if their existing location already serving alcohol, a church or a school moves in, they are vested, so they don't have to remove the alcohol. Yeah, they can keep their use as is.
I was like,
So it
we have
doesn't affect them
schools-
at all.
We have small schools like popping up in strip malls, you know, in random places.
That's correct.
Yeah, I would just add, the scope of this amendment pertains only to schools of general education, not churches. In the instance that Jeff referenced, that's a pre-existing church, so if there was, you know, a bar that wanted to move in within the 300 feet, they're already prohibited because it's an existing use.
Okay.
Right, so this isn't a new school, it's an existing school wishing to expand. And there are no proposed amendments to the use allowances for churches. This is only schools of general education, putting them on an equal basis with private schools with public schools pursuant to the city attorney's recommendation.
Yes, and keep in mind, even though they'll be allowed in most zoning districts, in every zoning district, they still have to meet development code requirements. Unlike charter schools and public schools, which are exempt from local zoning regulations, they will still have to meet our development code standards for parking, landscaping, height requirements, whatever the case may be. So they're still on the hook for all those requirements.
Is it necessary for the neighbors to have any comments about that?
To answer your question, no, this is an allowed use. It would be just like a site plan that when somebody develops a new commercial development, we don't require input from property owners.
And the development code does provide for buffer requirements
Right.
that will have to be followed for private schools of general education.
That's correct.
The distance from the fences, that sort of thing.
Right, require buffer walls and distances, landscaping, that type of thing would be required.
And just to clarify, long story short, is we're just actually doing this to bring us into compliance with state law.
That is correct.
Oh, okay. Can I ask, sorry, on the, I didn't see a, like, what do you call it? Legend in the packet for the development code amendment chart that you placed there where it says like, you know, the P versus C or NC is crossed out where, like, that's where the,
Yeah.
okay, can you just explain what that means?
Sure, yeah, so the P means permitted use, C means C, conditional use permit, and NC means it's non-compliant. Okay,
You're just making,
so what we're doing is we're changing all the, for schools of general education, we're changing the NCs to Ps, with the caveat that it has to be at least 1 acre or more in SFR.
And maybe it got cut off, but in the development code, there are footnotes that explain the abbreviation.
Yeah, here's the footnote right here, number 8.
well, because it says it's permitted in single family, right? Okay, it's not, never mind.
Right,
Not permitted in single family. Okay,
correct.
got it. Sorry, I'm just trying to
It's
be
okay.
tracking.
No, that's fine. That's fine, no
Track
problem.
along.
That's the purpose of the work session,
Yeah.
make sure everybody's on board,
Okay.
understands what's going on, okay? Any other questions on this? Is it now time for you to sit down, Jeff?
I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll think of something else to get him up.
Yeah, or-
Okay, under new business, we now move to item number 6. Ms. Yarborough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this item will reaffirm council's decision from December when you approved the rate increase but added a 30-day public comment period. And since that time, we've received 16 comments that were against the rate increase, and many of the commenters felt that services had been eliminated or reduced with the end of curbside recycling, or the rate increase was simply not warranted. 4 comments were essentially they understood, I wouldn't say they necessarily agreed, but they understood the rate increase. About 15 of the other comments received were regarding privatizing refuse, once a week pickup, asking for curbside recycling back, or general statements on the green waste program and other fees. They didn't indicate a feeling on the rate one way or another. And then before the council's meeting in December, there had been 12 comments received before that December meeting that addressed various issues overall regarding the fees, recycling, and rates in general. So a total of approximately 50 comments received since around last September, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
How many refuse customers, roughly?
About
11
11,500.
to 12,000, Mr. Mayor.
I have,
Questions, discussion?
yes. I read every comment. I did have a question in the packet. People's names are blocked out. Is that intentional? Blacked out. I didn't see that. I feel like if you make a
Private-
public
well,
comment, you made
I
it
don't know if there's,
publicly.
that's, we're dealing with a privacy issue, and our privacy expert is not sitting there.
Over there.
I don't know if this works. Oh, yeah, I noticed that when I was reading it too. It is not a requirement that we redact the identity, but that apparently is what staff did when they prepared the packet. We generally do try to protect individuals' privacy as best we can, but no, that is not protected information.
Okay. I just think people make comments anonymously. Sometimes they use stronger language, right? Or
And I think we had one or two of those.
we had a few, of those. And which is fine, and that's, I'm glad that they're making comments, but own it, like put your name on it, you know what I mean?
It's more an issue of email addresses than not putting those
Not
out to the
protected.
public. I know they're not, but I'm saying
Yeah.
I think that was the thought behind
Yes.
blacking them out.
Other comments or questions?
I had one, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
One more. That there was a comment that came in very early on that I think we discussed before, but I hadn't heard a response. I don't remember, or at least I don't remember. How will the rate increase affect annual bills? Like, I'm not sure when they get billed, and are they getting if someone does annual billing, how will that be
So it's
affected?
the same question about getting the 10% discount by paying annual bill. That's still going to continue, I believe. David?
The year in advance customers, which are billed in July to pay July through June, their bill, they'll see the rate increase under July 1 bill, and we'd never back billed for any months that the rate increase may have come into effect. So if it goes into effect March 1, by paying year in advance, that kind of has protected them from any during the year rate increases. We've never
That's
gone
what I
back and
wanted to know.
retroactively applied it.
And Mr.
Discount
Mayor and
percentage.
Councilmember Pacheco, there's no, that 10% discount for paying a year in advance will still be offered.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what-
Good reason to get year in advance.
Otherwise, that rate is quarterly. The increase is
Bi-monthly.
quarterly.
Bi-monthly.
Bi-monthly.
Oh,
Monthly.
Because bi-monthly allows savings in the utility bills and the postage, the printing of the bills and all of that, but it's not so long that it makes it easier for a person to get behind and in trouble with their bills.
Any other discussion? No?
One more.
If you got something to say, spit it out, Darna.
Okay. So if I had all the hours in the day and time in the world, and I don't, but there was a lot of comments that are the same. I wonder what kind of response do they get? Is there an automatic response received from public comment, just a thank you for your comment or something? So I would love to have the
That's a good thing
time.
for us to talk about right now. 'Cause
Okay.
what normally would happen, and this is my perspective, is I get a little thing from Yvette, and you probably see it on your computer too, that says there's been 2 messages or 3 messages received, and they're in the read file. Okay? If they're personally addressed to me, and I do get some of those, I'm sure you guys get those too, I go ahead and respond to those. If it goes to the read file, then I personally will go in the read file and I evaluate what's being said, number one. Number two, does it require a response, or is it, somebody letting off steam? And that's the case sometimes when they don't want to send the email, or they use
They don't use their name or.
kind of funny name, or they use language that's not probably proper for Sunday school. So
We had
I
a
go
few of
through and
those.
make my call as to which ones I answer, which ones I don't answer. And when I do make a response, I try to get Yvette to put it back up on the net, and hopefully you guys have seen some of those where I've responded. I would recommend that you do the same thing. You go through those ones that weren't sent to you personally, and if there's one that you think is worthy of response, that you go ahead and do that. And we haven't been doing that, and that's one of the issues, I think, I don't remember the lady who came up and talked to us. That's one of the issues she had when she sent her, what I call a petition with 30 signatures on it, and didn't get a response. I read it. I normally don't respond to a petition. That's what I told her. If you feel differently, you have the opportunity to go in that read file and respond specifically to those folks, and I would recommend you do that.
Okay. I guess when
That's
something's.
kind of what I would recommend. I don't know how everybody else feels about it, so it's.
I guess
this is-
I wondered if something is sent as a public comment on something that we're discussing and on the agenda.
So you're looking for staff
I
to
wonder
say
whether
that
that's
you're.
allowed, I guess. or
Well, the other question,
Happens here, in council
what
meeting.
you're asking.
I guess I don't know if it's been sent to the whole council, is it some kind of open meeting law violation if I'm responding? And also, I'm not speaking for the council, I'm speaking for myself.
Yeah, well, that's what I try to make abundantly clear, is I'm speaking for myself when I do respond. I don't know, Jill. What do you think? It shouldn't, if it's a public record item and it's on
we
the
send it as a
read
public
file
comment.
and we respond to a comment, are we getting into trouble?
Probably pushing towards getting into trouble. It's business of the council, and if it's available to all council, you're expressing an opinion as to how you think something might be, or if that can be drawn out of that. So it's always better to not do that on a large platform, if possible. You can singularly communicate with an individual.
So
But
what you're
if-
saying then is if I, for example, read something in the read file, I respond to that person, I ask Yvette to put my response into the read file so the rest of the council can.
That would be a violation if it's
I've been screwing-
potentially
you tell me I've been
business of the
screw-
council,
I've been
yes.
screwing up all this time.
Yes.
Okay.
Good way to go, Mr. Mayor.
The jury will
But the challenge,
disregard the comments.
the challenge though is, I honestly believe myself, as I think the rest of the member of council would probably agree with me, is we want to be responsive
Yeah.
Right.
to the public, and the way we're receiving the comments from the public, we're not always going to be able to respond to them in an adequate manner.
Well, and you
that-
could
that means
look at.
we're not helping our constituents.
Yeah, you could look at business of the council, and you could look at an individual's issue, because those might be a little different. Whereas, like with these sewer or
Well, it's
sanitation
different if
rates,
somebody
that's
comes up and say, I need
different.
help in this area, and then
Right.
you go help, and that's different than
Yeah.
an
Yeah,
issue
so
before
that
the
may
council.
be
We're all
different, or
business of the
the
council.
response can be
What a
relayed
nightmare.
to the rest of the council differently, or in a different manner.
We'll go to you and then to Chuck.
If it's all in a read file, isn't it just like the work session where because it's already at public comment at that period, and we're receiving comments from the public, and we're talking about what's going on and what we think. So wouldn't that still be classified as
No,
an extended work session since it's a read room?
it's not noted, it's not agendized, it's kind of, would be a perpetual meeting.
Okay.
We have to actually, because we've had questions about having meetings
talking about-
electronically, and that would be
I'm
what
talking
that
about me,
is.
he and I
Yeah.
having a conversation, I'm talking about me having a conversation with a individual over
With the
email.
individual.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then everybody else can read it, but not comment on it.
Yeah.
But if it's business of the council, then your opinion has just been relayed to the balance of the council, and so therefore you have,
Okay, that would have violated them.
Yes.
Okay, that's crazy, but I get it.
But, yeah, Mayor Mueller, members of the council, this is a difficult question, and a lot of people simply like to know that we receive the comment, and staff can acknowledge the comment and
That's what we
say
need to
it's
do.
being placed in the packet or whatever for council consideration, but that's as far as we can go. We can't offer responses.
Is there no, I know a lot of times, on a form email, which is how we get these public comments, when it's sent, it just says email sent successfully. Are they not getting that?
Well, they should be getting that,
that's an
but sometimes people just like to know, what's gonna happen to the comment or whatever, so.
We'll go with Gwen, since you had a turn
Gwen's
already.
turn.
That's
Gwen's
true.
turn.
Ladies
You
first.
just said, thank you for your email. Thank you for your email. What's controversial about that?
That's not an issue.
That's
As long
that's
as I don't say,
fine.
I totally agree with you, you are so right. Couldn't do that, right?
Correct.
So we could just say thank you, appreciate receiving your email.
We'll be discussing that at the council. Tune in, right? Tune in, because that's where we can respond.
I think it's two different issues. I agree with what Ms. Gwynn said, but the question I had then, if I can't do it from the read file where everyone on council gets to see my opinion, what's the difference on a public forum or in public where we have an agenda item coming up and I share my opinion where other council members can see it?
Supposed to be.
Generally, that has been allowed, and they haven't cracked down on that because it's not a city forum that
Okay.
you're doing it. What I would say is that if other council members see it, they don't jump on and comment, that it's not perpetuated or anything like that. You're absolutely able to have your own opinion and put it on social media or in print or however you want to do that. That's your right. But when it becomes more than that, that's when it becomes a problem. And so it's kind of a education and a discipline thing on the members of the boards, commissions, council, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Makes sense.
Well, I guess I need to go get some come talk to you and get some re-education, because there's gotta be a better way,
Me too.
gotta be a better way to do this.
Yeah.
Because, I kind of felt sorry for the lady that was here and said, hey, nobody's responded to me.
And my first thought was, I thought we weren't allowed to, because
And
she
that's-
submitted a
and that's the
public
thing,
comment.
If that's the case, we gotta either find a way to just acknowledge and say we can't respond tonight. Well, anyway, we'll talk about,
Well, and staff response is fine. So it's you as council members that those laws apply to. It's not the staff. So staff can respond.
We can have a very simple, an easy response to it. Obviously, if there's an item that's going to be, taken up by the council and you haven't made a decision on that item yet, we can't really offer an opinion or anything like that. But we can acknowledge that it was received.
and that's a challenge you have. You can't get ahead of the council's decision.
Yeah. So we
Okay.
can respond, and I think that helps a lot of
That's something
people
we're gonna have
just
to think
know
about a
that-
little bit,
that we did
figure a
that.
way to get this done. Because people should, when they they share their concerns, they at least they should get some type of a
Get some kind of
response, even
acknowledgement.
if they don't agree with the
We could
response they
say
get.
it'll be.
And believe me, I've sent a couple of those out
The item will be
too.
coming up and will be included in the
Yeah.
council packet or
Okay.
something like that.
So we could do that.
Well, yeah, wait for the league.
They want to know you guys got the,
Yeah,
Got the
I got it.
that's
Okay.
the main
Okay.
thing.
So, that was item what? You got me lost already.
6.
I'm so upset. Okay. So that was item 6. Anything else on item 6?
No.
Okay, thank you. We now go on to item 7. Ms. Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. On December 12th, 2019, council approved a 30-day public comment period for proposed amendments to Chapter 52 of the City Code of Ordinances to allow private recycling collectors. To date, the city has received 7 written comments, 3 in support. 1 comment did not support, stating concerns that private companies would increase street repair and administrative costs to the city. 1 suggested looking into compactors through Republic. 1 commenter approved if it did not cost the city or residents any money, and 1 comment questioned if residents would be charged for those services. So the ordinance before you is for the adoption of the proposed amendments. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions for Ms. Osborne? Thank you. Any further discussion?
Have discussion. Sorry, go ahead.
Gwen?
Oh, thank you. I'm really struggling with this because, as with many of the people in the community, I just feel like we're taking a step backwards. I know we've gone over this many, many times, but it still has a strong feeling of going backwards, that we are completely no longer providing this service to the community at any cost. I want to say to the community, it's not really a question, Jennifer, but that we should continue to look for other possibilities and talk with the professionals at the city and other places about alternatives to recycling the way we've always done it. Of course, I think many of us have this huge concern that most of our recycling is now going into the landfill. That, and I believe we talked about that we'll kind of be looking at that, and we'll be able to measure to some degree if most of the recycling is going into the landfill. Even though people feel strongly about it, it's a different matter to have a private company charging you to pick up recycling and had the municipality charging you to pick up recycling. So all I'm doing now is just expressing what I believe is the feeling of many people in the community, that it's just a shame that we can't figure out a better way to do this. A couple of things that I think need to be considered too is we can't continue doing things the way we've always done it. That's the definition of something, right? But it doesn't mean that we need to completely junk it, that we just can't do this anymore. So I think there's probably regional and statewide solutions to this. I don't know what other states are doing. I know we're different. But my request is that the city continue to look at possibilities, even weird possibilities, but possibilities, because to stop collecting this stuff and doing something positive with it, I don't mean shipping it to China. And by the way, I saw in the paper today they're shipping it back, which is just a crying shame, you know, that people are still shipping garbage across the water. Luckily, they're shipping it back and not just dumping it in the ocean. But we as a country, oops, I'm on my soapbox, but we as a country need to take responsibility. And I think Arizona has done a lot of things that are really positive and sets examples for the rest of the country. And whatever we as individuals or as a council, because you can bring it to the council, whatever we can do to change that picture of just giving up, we need to do. And I know there's some solutions because places are doing things differently. Now, Victoria, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you were talking this morning, and it influenced me that even Phoenix is considering giving up their recycling effort. Do I have that correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Calhoun, yes, Tucson as well.
And Tucson. So I understand that even the big cities who we might think would have the ability to handle this are kind of giving up on it. But that's not the answer for a country, to just give up. It's not the answer for this state. And I hate to say it because I know we've tried and tried, but it's just not the way for the city either. We just need to figure it out. And I don't know if there's people sitting out there in the city who have these great ideas and they just haven't brought it to us. There's some answers here that we're missing. And at first I was going to recommend that we table this and continue looking for a solution, but I don't think that's the answer either. I just want us to know that we're going to come back to this issue. And we're not going to let it go until we come up with some answers, even if that takes a couple of 3 years to come up with. But nothing I've thought of is going to work. So I guess that's it. But
I just want to say I appreciate your comments. There was only one thing that I disagree with you on. I think it was the inference that we're quitting and stopping on recycling. I think I don't want to really speak for council, but I think most of us feel that this is something that's worthwhile. It's worth pursuing. At present, it is not cost-effective and would in fact cause our citizens probably more than they're willing to pay, et cetera. However, that doesn't mean we should stop looking for other solutions. And markets change. And at some point in time, the market will shift again. Technologies improve. Maybe the waste to energy business will mature enough where it doesn't require a huge civic investment to get it off the ground. So you're right in the fact that we needed to continue to look, and I don't think the council's given up on recycling.
Thank you for correcting
I
that.
think we're at a point where we've looked at a number of solutions. We don't see anything more viable than what we're trying to do, and that bothers me too, because I think the right thing to do is recycling, and we got to be able to do it cost effectively because we're a government. And if you were a private company, you'd have to do it cost effectively too, otherwise you wouldn't be in business. So that's where our challenge is. But again, I haven't given up. I don't think anybody else has given up either. So I think your point there is very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I am concerned about as we talked about before, kind of the transition time. I really did not like that it was an either or, that we either allow private pickup of recycling or we have a city's recycling center. And it doesn't seem like we have a say in that as council. Like, we didn't have a say in stopping curbside pickup and getting the recycling center. So I don't think that we would have a say in stopping the recycling center. But I still personally would not be in favor of this if it's an either or. That's how I feel.
I'm not sure I understand what you just said.
I would not be in favor of
That part
changing
I got.
this.
The last sentence I got.
If it's either or, because the discussion was if we allow private haulers to come in and do curbside pickup of recycling, then the city will shut down our recycling center.
I think
That was what I understood.
no, I think part of the getting the funding right and getting the enterprise on track was to get rid of recycling, but we didn't want to just leave the city without any way to recycle, and so we want to change our codes to open it up to private haulers. Is that why
So
it's not the other way around?
you want to enlighten us here before we go to?
Yeah, Mayor Mueller, members of the council, the ordinance doesn't preclude you from having your own recycling program. The issue for us in recommending that we stop our program are the costs involved with doing a very small amount of recycling at our center in order to help balance the refuse fund. So,
140K.
and that's the reason why we're recommending it. Of course, council can tell us that you want to have a recycling center, and then we would have to figure out how to pay for it then.
I don't know, and maybe you have numbers quick off your hands of the number of people that partake of the recycle center in a monthly time period.
We just know we were getting 5% of what we were getting before. Curbside.
Of the tonnage.
Yes.
And that includes both county and city.
Roger. And so if we went to something like the county did, because the county don't pick up trash, so they don't charge a trash fee, and they charge for recycling. If we went something along that similar lines, we could both run a city refuge or a city recycling center at 140,000, you're looking at 11,000 a month, roughly 2,000 people, $5 each. Counties is more than that.
Well, I say,
we could do both.
I say, why not just use the county if I want to recycle?
I agree. I agree, but for those that think the city needs to have it, we have the same issue when people say, oh, we need to privatize.
And you gotta
refuge.
realize that we're in a consolidated collection system with the county. So if they're offering the service,
just open theirs up. I agree.
so there is a way to recycle. It may
Make
not
a
be
point.
under city's tutelage, but there is a way to recycle.
Yeah.
I was making a point, and then you jumped to it.
And the difference there, obviously, the county is charging people to drop off, and we weren't.
We weren't.
So,
But I think we should in that aspect.
Well, then the question becomes if we're gonna charge,
Why not just use the county?
and why are we doing it when it's available for county residents, and everybody in the city is a county resident? So,
Oh, it's gonna be one.
It's a good
Makes
thought.
sense?
So,
It's a good thought.
No, that's what, money's gotta come from somewhere. We can't just
Well,
keep
that's it.
doing all kind of crazy things, not crazy things, excuse me, my language. We can't keep doing things that we expect the taxpayers to jump on top of just because we feel it needs to be done, or some people feel it needs to be done. We have to pick what's best for the city and what's best for our budget going forward and where we want to be. And trying to show people that keep, and I'm trying to put two together, the people that try to say, oh, we need to do privatization for refuse, it's the same situation. We're going to run into the same situation we're running into with privatizing recycling. People are going to be upset, some people are going to be for it. So there's no win-win in any of this situation. We just have to do what's right for Sierra Vista and make sure our refuse and our trash and our recycle is picked up and sent to the proper place as we continue to look for viable solutions going forward.
okay. Anybody else? Thank you, Jen.
you.
We appreciate it. The next, move on to item number 8, development agreement. Mr. McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This request pertains to Mountain Vista Mobile Home Park located at 700 South Carmichael, which is just south of Busby and north of the Sierra Carmichael Apartments. The 16-acre site was included in the West Sierra Vista Infill Incentive District, designated by the City Council in 2005 to promote and help facilitate the reuse and redevelopment of vacant, underutilized properties through certain incentives authorized by the state statute. In this case, the property owner is seeking relief from certain development standards, which by policy requires approval by the City Council. Specifically, the owner is seeking a 5-foot reduction to the minimum front and rear yard setback requirement in the manufactured home residential district, going from 10 feet down to 5 feet. All building and fire separation standards will still be met. The park, which is approximately 40 years old, contains 158 spaces, with the middle section currently devoted to short-term RV rental. The park is in transition, and dozens of older mobile homes have been demolished and removed in recent years. By last count, there are under 40 that remain. The current owner has plans to refurbish the park by renovating existing units that make financial sense and continue the removal of those that do not. They've ordered 10 new 2-bedroom, 2-bath manufactured homes that measure 66 feet in length that are scheduled for delivery by the end of this month. The development agreement will provide the needed flexibility to accommodate their placement. Each space will be landscaped with desert stone and low water use plants. As these units are sold or leased, they will continue to incrementally add more units to the park in batches of 10 to 20 at a time. The president of Good Living Ventures will be at the hearing on Thursday to elaborate on their plans and their experience turning around other parks in Arizona and other states in the Mountain West. The proposed development agreement does secure a 7-foot wide public sidewalk easement along the eastern edge of the property, bordering Carmichael Avenue for future sidewalk construction. This endeavor aligns with the city's affordable housing goals as well as revitalization of older areas of the community. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Just a comment, this looks like a really positive move for the city and for the West End. I was curious about, you mentioned the center section will be for, did you say RVs? An RV park or?
Currently, it's devoted for RV use. Depending, on the response to from the market to the newer manufactured homes and the refurbished manufactured homes, they may look to convert that middle section to manufactured housing. That decision has not been made at this point in time.
I see. And I was also just kind of curious, I mentioned this earlier, about the need for affordable housing in our community. And did you mention that as a probable or possible resource for affordable housing in the community?
Yes, that is one of our goals that's being met through this project.
That's fantastic.
And that is the niche this business serves, is quality affordable housing.
I also was looking, and will continue to look for definition for what really constitutes affordable housing and how that fits into the real needs for Sierra Vista. Not that I doubt that it's there, I just don't know the numbers. I don't, and I don't know the descriptions. But the other thing that was curious to me was also that as those, and I don't know if this is getting too much into this man's business, but that as the housing is used, and I don't know if he's using that that tax. Is this a tax?
It's
thing?
private.
Okay. Oh, so it's not that
Tax credit.
tax credit.
No.
Oh. Okay.
That's another project that will be coming to the council and on a future agenda.
Okay, so he doesn't, he really doesn't have to do things like, for instance, scatter lower income housing into his planned cost housing. I know it's affordable, but, you know, even lower than whatever that affordable is. So if we could put a request on.
That would be a requirement put on if he's using federal money, but obviously if it's private, he's not using the federal money.
Okay, I guess that was my kind of question
Sure.
on that, so. So private,
He'll charge as much as the market will bear.
bear.
And the
Okay.
definition of affordable is 30% of area median income for Cochise County, and it varies depending on family size. And I can provide you with the chart if you're interested in
Yeah.
knowing the exact figures.
probably get that off your previous stuff from you, so. But that would be great, it'd make it
Sure.
easier. Thank you.
Okay.
And I just want to make a comment. Matt told me this was coming up, and one of the things I suggested we do is we ask for the right-of-way. And the reason that's important, because there's sheet flow when it rains that comes off that runs into the rest of the neighborhood there. And if we can get curb, gutter, and sidewalk, that's going to help. It may not stop it, but at least slow it down and channelize it a little bit so that we can do the rest of the engineering that needs to be done.
Is that the 7 feet he was talking about?
Yeah. So, and that's gonna be a big help, I think, for that entire neighborhood. So, Matt, thanks for getting
Sure.
that agreed to. We appreciate it.
Fantastic.
I just have one clarification question. Matt, it's called the mobile home park, and you're saying he's putting in manufactured homes, which is it? Those are two separate.
Yeah, I guess that's the historic name, and I think they're going to keep it.
But they're going to
But
be putting in
manufactured
not
homes,
mobile.
right.
Okay. Or what we
And that's
refer
not a
to.
problem for codes or anything?
No.
It's an improvement.
Yeah, it is an improvement.
The manufacturer's an improvement.
The vernacular of the 70s, it's been updated, yeah.
Further questions or discussion? Okay, thanks, Matt. And then we go to call the public comments of the council, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, adjournment. Okay. When we go to the agenda for today, I'm going to move discussion on commissions to the end so we hopefully can buzz through the reports on recent trips, meetings, and future meetings. Tomorrow I'll be going up to testify before the Transportation Committee in the House. What they asked for was for me to talk about conditions of roads, local streets, and how we're financing and not getting the same amount of money. And this is all a prelude for non-gas vehicles will have to contribute, and they haven't figured that out yet, but they want to get an idea from outside the metropolitan areas, status of roads, et cetera, and how it impacts, and et cetera, going up tomorrow to do that. And anybody else have any meetings or reports?
I'd just like to comment.
Sure.
Again. Just comment on a meeting. I went to the Continuum of Care. What's the rest of that name? Balance of State, for communities that aren't in Maricopa or Pima County, I believe. Anyway, it was very interesting. It was amazing to see how various agencies are coming together to provide services for those who are homeless or almost homeless. And it looks like it's going to be a very effective program to help us, help the city, and the city to help those agencies to better help the homeless. So it was a very interesting meeting. I also went to, this is separate from city business really, but I went to the Arizona Community Foundation Board meeting. And I just wanted to to raise the issue that there's some funding, and I hope you're probably already aware of this, but there's some funding to help a business that's coming into town that wants to build affordable housing, to help with all of that preliminary stuff that businesses have to do with permits and surveys and all those other things. So that as we're dealing with or talking to people who are saying, oh, maybe we'll bring our business to Sierra Vista, you might want to see if they meet the qualifications. And I can give you any information on who to talk to after you talk to Matt. The qualifications for accessing those funds. So it's really a good program.
So share that with Matt and Tony as
Matt
well.
probably already knows.
Yeah, Tony
about it.
doesn't already know, okay. All right, great. Board and commission liaison updates. Liaisons, sir.
You'll start seeing applications coming in for the Culture Diversity Commission. Yeah, we have 2 right now. They're gonna come straight to the council, of course, because we don't have a commission right now. So I'm hoping, I've talked to 4 other people besides the 2 that applications we already got, so I'm hoping we'll have a Culture Diversity Commission coming up here soon. And then an update on Parks and Rec. We took, Mr. Imus came and talked to us, did a call to the public after the email we received from him. Parks and Rec is gonna do a forum with the community. How can we reach and survey the community on what they think, where they think the best, where we as the Parks and
Unmanned
Rec-
aerial systems, you need to tell us.
I'm sorry.
Unmanned aerial systems, yeah.
Unmanned aerial systems, or the drones, whatever we want to call them. And they're gonna find out, one, what the state law is and why it's like that, the best location if we do and decide to implement something like that, to actually do it in, and they'll bring the recommendation to the council once they're done with it.
Recreational use of unmanned
Yes,
aerial
sir.
systems.
State law, it's FAA. law.
FAA. But we also, they have been working, we had Matt come talk to us, thank you, Matt, about the adoptive park, which a lot of people don't know. We have an adoptive park program, just like we have an adopted highway or adopted street program. So what we intend to do as a commission is February 8th at 07:30, we are going to be at Veterans Memorial Park. That's AM 07:30. I seen that look. We're going to be at Ramada 1, right? Painting the Ramada, cleaning up the area, doing all kind of maintenance on Veterans Park. Our hope is to try to turn it into, I guess, I forgot what it's called, the flash mobs, to where people just come together at times and, hey, we're going to clean the park, or they see us at the park and people just stop because they want to help out. But hopefully it gets the word out, and then we can start pushing our adopted park program to the community more, to get the community more involved in adopting our park. So if anybody wants to come out, we're going to stay there. We have a top 10 list, a top 20 list we want to get done. Depending on the number of people we have show up, depends on how much we get done. So looking forward to that one. It should be pretty fun, I think.
And date and time of that begin?
February the 8th at 07:30.
Ramada number 1?
Ramada number 1, Veterans Memorial Park.
Okay.
Say
All
that
right.
real quick 5 times. No, and that's it, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank y'all.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you for that. We now go to any future discussion items and council requests.
Mine are all related to our last discussion about commissions, so I'll just say.
Okay, we'll save it, yeah, because we're going to go into that right now. Okay? All right. Now, we'll move on to commissions. Let me get my slides here. And I will tell you that there is an error on the second slide, or third slide, is it? And I hope it wasn't a Freudian slip, but I forgot to put Airport Commission on there.
Oh, Sarah didn't hear that.
This is not on the slide.
Should be Airport Commission under committees on the third slide. Okay. So I was asked by Will to give an update as to where I thought we were on the consensus items. So if we could go to the first slide. and we can discuss each one of these bullet by bullet if you'd like. Under the bullet where we have current commissions go to 5 members, that would be accomplished through attrition. And the youth commission may be an exception, and the reason I say it may be an exception because we haven't really discussed youth commission. I think we probably need to have a more in-depth discussion. We may want 2 represented from, based on the number of schools that are high school as well as middle school. And that's gonna take some time to work out. And I may be asking for some of you for some help on that as well. So I see nodding the heads. Comment, if you got a comment here, jump in.
So you're saying all current commissions go to 5 members?
Yes, ma'am. Commissions go to 5 members.
Commissions and, like, we renamed a couple.
Well, if they're gonna, I'm talking with current commissions, and they may be renamed to a committee in the future. We haven't got down to that one yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Slow down.
Oh, now, okay. I'm glad.
Clarification. Go
I'm
ahead,
fine
sorry.
with that.
I know you had a concern.
No, okay.
About-
No, that, I think, so all commissions.
All
Whether we're
all current
changing them
commissions,
to
whether we're
boards
changing
or-
them, they go to,
Fine.
and the reasoning behind that is basically workload. We're still getting the input from the community, but we save on the admin workload on two members.
Admin workload.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the certificates afterwards, and the letters, and the,
How does that help with the admin workload to have fewer people?
because here's what happens. First of all, they have to fill out an application, and they go through the process of joining. It comes to us, and we do that 7 times for each commission instead of 5 times for each commission. Okay? When somebody is termed out, they then get a letter, they get a certificate, and again, that's 7 times versus 5 times.
Okay, I have to think about that. 'Cause
And then you multiply that times 14.
Make it,
So this is just streamlining, is basically what that means.
okay.
And right now, most folks meet once a month. And they can meet once a month if they have business once a month. But what I'm suggesting is we meet not less than 4 times a year. And I say that rather than quarterly, so that we don't say, oh, we didn't meet in the first quarter. We may have met 2 months in the second quarter, or 2 months in the first quarter, and we can miss the second quarter, whatever it is. And then here's where the difference comes in. Parks and Recs and Planning and Zoning basically remain commissions because they're regulatory in nature. They actually make recommendations to the council on park regulations or planning and zoning regulations. The other commissions don't really do, although they make recommendations, they don't make regulatory recommendations. And that would have a council liaison, and we would go through the same process that we go as we do today. So they would basically be unaffected, other than the fact there would be 5 instead of 7.
And
Are you,
I'm on bullet number 3 now.
are you talking about all the other commissions?
And when we go to item number 4,
What?
we're talking about all of the commissions would be they're recommending bodies, they're not regulatory bodies.
Yeah.
And they would be authorized under administrative directive, and they would liaison with the department heads.
So you're including the West End Commission
Yes,
too?
indeed.
And
What's good for the
what
goose is
happened
what's
from the
good-
last?
What's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you apply it to one, you really
I
can't
was-
justify.
I was awake during the entire last meeting. Did we not?
We didn't discuss that. That's why I'm
we
bringing it up
didn't
for
discuss it
discussion.
because it didn't change.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
There were a number that did not change. Let me get to that slide.
Yeah, because wait a minute
Let me go-
before you.
Let me go to that
And they
slide.
weren't
So I get you the right one.
considered for
There were,
change.
there were 3 that were not being considered for change.
Right.
Or two others that were not being considered change, West End and tourism.
But do they now follow these new guidelines?
They would be committees because they don't have a regulatory mission.
That's what I was gonna say, is I think when
That's the
when you look
difference.
at the
I'll try to look at
question,
why would one be and one would not be? The only reason is they're regulatory in nature.
And that was discussed. We kept asking about
Talk about that.
policies.
Policy
Would they,
against-
Did talk
do
about
they
that.
do influence
Okay.
policy?
Go back, we didn't go back and name
I
and
know-
name the West End or the Tourism
I
Commission
know the
specifically.
logic behind. I wasn't prepared for, for
Well,
you
we're
know.
not making decisions today, we're discussing it, okay?
Yeah, I know. Okay. Does it matter what do we have to call them committees? Can we
Well,
continue
no,
to call them
We don't have to call them
commissions?
committees. I put it out there as something different, just to differentiate a commission from a committee. We could call them a advisory group, we could call them whatever. We can still call them.
Could we continue to call them commissions even if they operate under staff?
And the reason being,
Yeah.
we could probably.
That's just a name.
Word.
Name.
I was trying to just differentiate when I made the slide together.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Planning and zoning could be a board, and the rest could be commissions instead of committees.
Doesn't matter.
It
And
all
their-
depends on who appoints.
Their job
yeah.
is to recommend to who?
They'd be recommending, the other commissions would recommend policy to and with the department head to the city manager.
Recommend policy to the city manager, who would then bring it to the council.
Well, if it requires that, yeah.
it requires that,
If it's
most of
something
it's
he can do on his
operational.
own, he does it on his own. Same with the department head. If the department head can do it on their own, that's a good idea. They can action it.
We're contradicting ourselves.
Author,
If the reason they're not committees is because they don't change policy or recommend policy, we can't say they're gonna bring policy to the staff and not the council.
It would be policy. It would be like,
Regulate, there's a difference
Regulatory
between
policy.
regulations and policy.
Okay,
So regulation means you go to a code amendment. Or you
Yes.
go to a park regulation.
Exactly.
Okay? Policy means they've looked at, and I'll pick out, the Disabilities Commission. They decided we need to have an award to recognize people that are doing good things. That's a policy question. That's
Okay.
not a regulatory question.
and it's
I'm
one that
tracking. We
staff
just
can,
keep,
And it's one that staff can pretty much action without coming to us unless they want, okay, do you object to doing, the council, do you object to doing this? So it's something we'll be in the net on, but we don't necessarily have to formalize a vote on.
and then other ways that we would be involved would be during the budget.
And during the budget
So like
process, exactly.
events. Yeah. So it's just a governance issue of how we want to do it, really.
So the question Carolyn asked is, do we still want to call them all commissions?
I don't have an opinion.
tomato, tomato, Mr. Mayor.
Well, they already have name tags and stuff. Like,
That's the reason. That's the reason.
you
good.
right?
Still have full
I like the
support
name
of the city.
commission.
Oh, yeah, they still have some,
Everything,
and everything
But
else.
now they get a new
Nothing
one.
else changes, no ma'am,
why is environmental affairs in parentheses?
because we haven't
That's
talked
who
about
they
that.
are.
Haven't
Is
talked
that the
about
only
it.
one we haven't talked about?
Yep.
Okay,
And
so.
other than youth commission, which we know we're gonna have to do more work on the youth commission.
just the
so
first
that's
thing
not
that
gonna be
popped
ready when the time comes.
We did make the decision not to put
No,
together
well,
arts. and-
no,
That was the consensus. We didn't make the decision. The
Oh, did I
consensus
Stop
say-
using that word.
was we're gonna split. That's, at least that's my opinion. Am I wrong?
I think you heard that correctly.
Okay.
Yeah,
What
I
we
think
doing?
so,
Splitting them?
that we were not going to combine
we're
arts
not-
and humanities
Yeah,
and
we're not
cultural
gonna combine them, I
diversity.
should say. We're not gonna split them. We're not gonna combine them. Okay?
What about the we're not gonna talk about process, sorry. Okay,
Well, we can once
once we get through this.
we get through this. So, basically, am I off, I need to ask you a question. Am I way off base here, or are we in at least in the ballpark?
In ballpark, Mr. Mayor.
Let me
I'm
ask about staff support.
Okay?
Where would that fit with a committee or a commission or a board, whatever we call it?
They would be working directly with the department head, and they would request from the department head any additional assistance they need to meet their mission.
Would,
That's not much like what it is today.
staff
Yeah.
would continue to meet with them?
Yeah.
And council would continue to meet with them?
When they have an issue to bring before council, yes. We're
But
not.
we would not be attending
You
their
would not-
regular meeting.
Yeah,
We
there-
could.
that's- And that's one of the
Liaison.
difference
We
here is,
could.
the Parks and Rec and the regulatory, the two regulatory have a council liaison.
Right.
And the other one, they're working with the department head.
But like Ms. Gwen said, can we go if we want
You
to
can go to any meeting, any meeting you want to in the city, as far as I'm concerned, unless somebody's got a big enough boot to kick you out.
Yeah, I'm just asking Jill if that's an open meeting law issue.
As long as.
As
long as there's not more than four.
As long as there's not more than 4 and it doesn't expand after that, yes.
Not more than 3.
More than 3, yes. Sorry.
Not more than 3.
Yeah, because if you have a fourth one, then you have a quorum.
No more than 3 or less
It's gotta
than
be
4.
posted.
I would doubt that would happen.
Well, I would too, yeah.
Unfortunately.
So, generally, that's where I think we are. We need to talk about environmental affairs, and I will tell you, I think Gwen made some good points, last time. I'm kind of on the fence on that one, quite frankly. I'm not sure we need them. If we do a 5-person committee and they're working specifically with the Director of Public Works, I probably could live with it. I may not be happy about it, but I could probably live with it. What does everybody think about environmental affairs?
Did I already add?
Can I?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I've already spoken several times. Uh-oh, what's she gonna do?
Okay. First comment is that I don't see airport mentioned.
Well, did
He
you hear me
said-
say that I forgot to put it on there?
Okay.
Oh, we were joking when we said you didn't hear that, but I guess I'm sorry.
I really didn't hear that.
I told her, but she must have been talking to Will instead of paying
He
attention.
tried to sneak that through,
didn't wanna
Sarah, but we
listen.
caught him.
Thank you.
No, he's.
Second is on committees, well, I guess I have a series of comments, concern, questions, but my thought is that a committee should exist when citizens are concerned enough about one issue to bring it forward to council, bring it to our attention, and it behooves council to listen and pay attention to their concerns. However, if some of these, cultural diversity being first to my mind, if there isn't enough citizen interest and coalescing around an issue for them to coalesce and bring that issue to us as council, I don't know that we need to force it to happen, like we are with cultural diversity. Some of the other, like, that we can't get enough people to stay on the commission, or they just leave and they don't participate, or we don't have quorum and we're not having meetings. And
I think we need to figure out a mechanism, and I haven't addressed that at all, to be able to address that problem. If we in fact have a commission, pick one, that for whatever, or committee, whatever you want to call them, that consistently can't meet, can't get anything done, then we need to consider them for elimination. The other side of the coin that I thought of as you were talking is, if we have something come up doesn't fit these things, we always have the ability to form a task force with a cutoff date where they can look at a specific issue that's a concern to the community and make recommendations to us. So we still have the task force ability to do that.
It was on one of your lists. It was called a Citizens
Yeah,
Advisory.
yeah, the Transportation Advisory Task Force.
Yeah.
And
So-
you mean,
No, we did it with the sign ordinance.
So those two possibilities are still there, Sarah, and I agree with you. We shouldn't have to, I know we're kind of waiting to see if there's response on the Cultural Diversity Commission. And that's a concern of a couple of council members. I think we would be hard pressed to say we have a consensus to do away with them right now. Obviously, 6 months down the road, if we still don't have, again, we're talking only 3 for a quorum right now instead of 4 under the new system. If we don't at least have a quorum, we may have to consider terminating that committee. Or directing it be terminated.
and Mayor, I would say too, in general, now those with more experience may have a different opinion, but I think our community may need more knowledge about coming to the council about specifics. We get people that come to us when they have a negative opinion about something that's happening. And I remember one time there was something about puppies in the parking lot at Walmart that really brought a lot of people to council meetings. But I think in general, folks aren't doing that. They're not coming to us with an issue that would rise to the level of a task force yet. So I think we need to just work with the community more.
Well, I think part of the reason they don't come to us is we've got, how many commissions right now?
That's true, but.
And so we have a varied array, and what I'm thinking about a
focus.
task force is something that doesn't fit the normal everyday criteria, and I don't know what that would be, Gwen.
So maybe we would need to get more in the habit of when somebody contacts us about something, saying that's an ideal issue, that you would go to the airport commission and kind of work that through. Is that?
I do that, but I've been getting in trouble for it evidently.
Oh. Is that what she was saying? Really?
No, but I'll be
No,
silly.
I understand what you're saying. So it just feels to me like, I mean, even with the commissions, a lot of community don't even know the commissions exist. So would you agree with that? That a lot of our community aren't aware of our commissions. So I think there's still a lot we need to do to reach.
But that also addresses a larger issue, and that is when things are going fairly well, most people have better things to do with their time.
Yeah.
When things aren't going well, then we all get
A lot
involved.
to say.
But sometimes
And
people don't
well,
know it's not well.
the thing is, so how do we educate so we have involvement when we want? That's really the question. How do we educate people on their civic responsibilities and get them engaged before it's the last minute?
Can I make a comment?
I don't think you should.
I never make comments. To
We're
this.
kind of going far afield here with
I
the
know.
discussion.
I know. Something that came to mind for me is that when you said that people don't know about commissions or how do they let the council know, we have a lot of different community organizations in this town that address issues or talk to issues. We have, and two that come to mind that I know the mayor attends both of them, that are not official committees or commissions, but the Veterans Council, United Veterans Council, and the Greater Sierra Vista Service Club, Joint Service Clubs Council, not official city commissions, but the city goes and things are brought up. And
Well,
I
chamber,
could-
chamber meetings too.
and chamber as well, like business, chamber meetings as well. So I see the potential for, I don't know how to do, but with the youth commission, I've been reaching out to different youth groups and committees and talking about pulling together more of a council of these organizations that is not an official committee of the city where you have to name an individual and have a person here. And every youth group I've contacted has been on board. Yes, sign us up, put us down. So I have that list of youth groups who want to participate.
You need to talk about that.
And I don't know what we would call it or how to do that better, but, I think the model for that is, the joint service clubs or the United Veterans Council, which works very effectively in this town without being an official city commission. And I think that there's a possibility for us to have a youth council or joint youth, I don't know.
Well, I think a youth
Something.
council where we would help host and do some of the admin for them
Yes.
would be helpful.
Just like we do
Yes.
with continuing.
We'd have to do some of the admin for them just to get it, especially get it off the
Yeah,
ground.
well,
But
yeah.
I think that that's a good model for,
Okay.
that's where I'm thinking with youth
There are different
in
roads.
particular.
I would like to continue playing with this commission idea.
Okay,
And
well,
try it out.
we're not done by all means in the discussion.
Can we get Ron if he wants to say anything?
Ron, did you want to say anything?
He has a,
No, we don't have a call to the public at the council work session, but if you want to make a couple of comments, I'll be willing to let you jump in, because I gotta apologize to the city manager, because I cut him off on the executive report. I just went right by
Oh,
it.
yeah.
That's quite all right,
We'll
Mayor.
do that next year.
Ron,
He's
you-
really offended.
I can give you a couple minutes.
It's a call to Ron.
Call her on.
He's been at a work session for the last.
My wife's supposed to be watching. I'm Ron Faulkner, the chair of the Environmental Affairs Commission, and we just had our last vacancy. We have 6 filled and 1 vacancy to be filled, hopefully, so we don't have a problem with membership at this time, which we appreciate. I guess after attending several of these meetings and listening, I guess I'm coming to the point of asking, what is the value of commissions to the council? Do you really need us? And I'm getting the impression that you really you've got other ways to get the ideas, but if you have individuals, I guess my belief is if you have individuals that come forth with ideas, that's not as strong as a group, if you will, that has time to massage it or think about it or come up with some ideas or do a little research. I think you'll lose that. I think also ask you, if we say we would meet no less than 4 times a year, does that mean we can still meet 12 times a year? It does, okay. Then there would be a need. I've heard some other commissioners mention that if we go to this new format of committees, if you will, or not a commission, that they would seek other uses of their time, if you will. It kind of discourages you from being that, but maybe it's just getting used to the new definition of what we're supposed to be doing or providing. I know the EAC, and I'll close here, we're looking at issues such as water issues, as you well know, and concerned about that, and regeneration of water in the aquifers, and the recycling options. We're still looking at things like that, such as we just came across a new thing you may have seen on TV in Tucson, like making sand out of glass bottles, these portable type things, and looking at commercial. But also, we're having a discussion at our next meeting, the 20th of this next month, about energy from waste. And that again goes back to can we do something to take probably a multi-county approach to do something like that, plus a lot of money and time. But I know we've talked to our director, Sharon, on that as well as Gwen. But I guess, are we useful to you, and what's the purpose of even having a commission if it's just going to be kind of every once in a while go to get us? We pretty much generate ideas versus y'all coming to us and tasking us. That's been my experience in 4 years. Thank you for the time, and I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Ron. Appreciate your comments. So we'll come back and talk. Well, before we go, environmental affairs. Does anybody have any problem with leaving them on there
As a committee,
as a committee in that group? Because since they're not a non-regulatory group, I'll put it that way. I don't really care whether we call them commissions. And then the consensus is we still call them all commissions?
If that's what they prefer.
If that's what they prefer? Okay, so you got a win there, young lady.
And I'm sorry for my reaction. Here's the problem. I assumed I knew what was in that part of I'm like, oh, because
Yeah.
I learned my lesson. I'm going to,
And you gotta come and visit the mayor and pick on him once in a while.
yeah,
Okay, figure out what's left in his brain cavity, if anything.
clearly, yeah.
Okay. Chuck, is there anything on the executive council report that we need to know tonight?
there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yes, there is.
We just move it to the next meeting.
Yeah. Can we talk?
Do we have a lot of questions?
Comments.
Have one.
I have a couple.
I'm happy to answer.
Okay. Well, then I appreciate everybody's persistence today. Anything else for the council? Staff, anything? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's cold. Just want to make sure we know.
Oh, are you getting sick?
Shivering.
Are
No,
you
no,
getting
no,
sick?
not at- I don't
It's a
do
little
that.
chilly.
I really
You
do.
don't- Okay, good.
I know. It's just